Happy Monday to you. This is the John McEntyre Money Show live. John McEntyre. Today is the 25th of August, August 25, 2025. And this month is almost, when the last week of it, almost done, coming close to the Labor Day weekend coming up. So a lot of people sort of checking out, getting ready for that, even though most people have just getting back from summer vacations and things like that. They're ready to go on their Labor Day vacation. But it is all good. So we actually have a good show today. Um, I'm going to be talking about some important financial moves for the 20-year-olds, for those in their 20s. And this actually comes from someone I was having a conversation as usual with the gym member, my Silver Sneakers crew. Um, we were talking about things, and one of them was saying, what's some things I could talk to my 20-year-old grandchild about. And because the actual parents had passed away, sadly had passed away in a car accident, and so they've taken on the responsibility of raising this child. Well, not a child, 20-year-old, but they are the the parents of the 20-year-old, and so they want to make sure that they give them some good advice, because they admitted that they did not exactly do the best thing in life with their money. That they've corrected some things, but they wish they would have done some certain things, and so they ask my advice and my input on it. But before we get into that, remember, we are live, so you can definitely interact live here. You can go to the chat if you're on Facebook Live. We're on Facebook and YouTube Live, and you can go to the chat, put in a question, put the uppercase Q or capital Q, whichever one you call it. It all works for me. Put it in there. I see it. I will definitely do my best to answer the question. If you have a wallet win, those small financial steps that will add up to long-term wealth. You have those. Put a hashtag in front so that I can identify it, so that we can identify it. We'll make sure and celebrate those, share and celebrate those, because that's what we're all about here. We all know that the wallet wins, those small steps, changes financially over time will equal the wealth and financial security that you desire. And so let's get into this important financial moves for the 20-year-old. Um, as I was having a conversation with the gentleman, we were laughing and talking, and then one of the ladies, she walked up, and we're all talking, and she was like, "Hey, yes, I need this also for my grandkids." And she said, "My daughter is not in her has been out of her in her 30s now, but she even needs it." And the grandkids, they need it even more. Some of them are teenagers, some of them into their 20s. But the reason why it's in the 20s, because most of the time, that's when they, 20 in your 20s, you're starting. If you haven't been earning your own money for a few years, you've gotten serious. You're in a career. Maybe you've graduated college and you've gone into you've entered into the career that you studied for. And I'm going to say it like this. And the people that I was talking with at the gym, they agreed with me. Two things that every 20-year-old thinks. We think that we are invincible. We think that we are immortal, that we can't be beat, can't be defeated, and that we will live forever. And once you get out of especially once you go into your 30s, get into mid 30s, and maybe you have a child or something like that, both of those are not true. You can be beaten, and you will one day look um, um, mortality in its face. It will be time to leave this earth. But until that time, in the 20s, we think that we're both of those. And so we don't see any need whatsoever for financial planning, for making any serious financial moves. In all actuality, those are the most pivotal times and some of the best times for your finances. Number one reason, you don't have a lot of um, responsibilities financially. Let's use the real term. You don't have a lot of bills. You don't have a lot of bills to pay in your 20s. Maybe if you're coming out of college, you may have student loan debt. Hopefully not. Um, but if so, that. But other than that, you pretty much, now you're going to, maybe you may be ready to get your first apartment, somewhere to live, and maybe buy the car, take care of transportation, and then the day-to-day things like eating. And so, with that being said, most of the time, if it's just focused in that area, you tend to go overboard in those areas because you don't see needs for other things in life. But hopefully, with what I share today, we will see the importance and the urgency of what you can, and also what you can do with your finances in your 20 that will definitely give you a leg up and everything. Because um, most of the time you talk to a 20-year-old about, say, for instance, retirement, they'll say, well, I'm not going to retire till 65, which is the traditional age of retirement. And so I can understand that. I was the same way. That's 40 years. That's 40 years away. um I'm thinking about tomorrow. Most 20-year-olds, they're thinking about tomorrow. What I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to wear tomorrow, what I'm going to eat tomorrow, if that. Most of the time they just keep it right there in the present. And so to actually look down, go into the future 40 years, I can understand that. I did it myself. I was like, I just can't see it. Now I can see it playing. It's playing in sight, and it's glaring like a train, like a freight train coming at me. Even though I'm not close to the retirement age, but I know that it's coming. Um, so to get the 20-year-old to look down 40 years is, that's, I can. It's understandable. Um, and also I'm a little lenient in that area because if I made every mistake to be made in my 20s and 30s and 40s. So the mistakes are going to be there. Some of the mistakes that was made in the 20s, I was actually able to correct them in my 30s. you know so that's why I'm a little lenient there, that there's some things, like for instance with retirement, if you don't get it right in your 20s, you can catch up in your 30s. Yes, beneficially, um, ideally it would be great if you took care of it, if you started that process in your 20s, just for one of the eighth wonders of the world, which is compound interest. It's just so much that could happen from age 20 to 30 that will just like crazy accelerate things for you financially. Just moving forward, it would be so beneficial for you to do it. But even if you didn't, I wasn't able to effectively take advantage of the compound interest, in my 20s and everything. But everything still turned out okay. You know. Now, there are some things in your 20s that should not be overlooked in your 20s, that once I say them, you'll be like, wow, I didn't really think of it that way. Um, but I'm gonna paint the picture like this. When you're doing anything, I was thinking, for instance, about the circus. I was watching on television one of the big circuses coming in town, and before show night, before the circus actually kicks off, they get in and they set up. They're like in town maybe a week or two before, you know, opening night or whatever, and they're setting up. I've seen that a couple of times. I've seen the big one, the Barnum and Bailey, and then the Universal circus. When it has come to Charlotte, I've seen it, but I've seen both of those being set up, and actually smaller ones also. Well, there's certain acts that they're going to, that people look forward to. Me personally, I always liked at the circus. Sure, I like the animals and all of this type of stuff, but I liked the tightrope walkers. I like the trapeze acts. I liked all of that type of stuff. The what is called the death defying acts of a circus. Um, those were my favorites. So watching those being set up before they did anything, once they put those, the poles up and they got everything set, the next thing they did, as soon as they were able to do it, they set up the safety net. They definitely set up, they put up the safety net. And it was, at first I was like, why the safety net? Why the safety net? And I remember one time someone was telling me, they said, well, they're going to practice, with the trapeze and the tightrope. They fall more during practice than they actually do in on performance night. This is the time to get everything right. So they're setting up the safety net because they're going to fall. Sometimes they do it on purpose because you have to fall right. You have to fall correctly, because if you don't fall correctly, you can actually get hurt, even if you're falling into a net. And so I told that long story. I was thinking about that one day, and I was like, in your 20s, that's the perfect time to set up your nets. Is to actually, get those safety nets set up. Number one, because it sets up a habit. You're just going, once you've set them up and you're used to them, it's like it's things you have in life that have been around so long. You've been taking care of them so long. It's just something that you do. And for instance, in your 20s, when you got your first car, you had to get insurance on it. So now it's like automatically, if you get a new car, the next thing you think about, okay, I have to call my insurance agent. It's like you don't argue against it. You don't do anything. You just do it. Well, the reason why it's that way is because you've just done it so long and you've just accepted it. So if you do certain things in your 20s and get them set up and get them they're just habitually there, it's just something that has always been there, it will never be a problem. You will know that you need money for it. You will budget for it. You will do what has to be done to take care of it, because you will also see the benefits of it, and you just don't want to do without it anymore. And with these, I like to call these the financial safety nets to set up in your 20s, that will definitely be there for you, throughout life. If something happens, they will be your saving grace. They will definitely be there to protect you, to catch you, to keep you from losing things, keep you from going into bankruptcy, foreclosures, things like that. These are the safety nets in your 20s that will help you. And so let's actually get into them. I've sold the case. So you've said, okay, I'm listening. The first one for 20-year-old is disability insurance. For someone to, most people think when they hear the word disability, they usually just think of maybe someone who's, aged. Most of the time that's where it's at. They've gotten older and now they're just not able to do things. But if you're 20 years old, by the time you're 65 years old, you have a 25 to 30% chance of becoming disabled, whether it's short term or long term. And here I'm talking about long term disability. Short term disability could be things like a pregnancy. The mom has the baby, and so that they're unable to do things, and they usually give a 90-day window for that. So that's short term. Those types of things. Maybe a broken foot, maybe a broken hand or something like that. Strained muscle, a minor surgery that leaves you bedridden, or you can't really do a lot for 30 to 60 days, and then you're back good. I'm talking about over 90 days, long-term disability, what is considered long-term disability. So a 20-year-old, by the time you're 65, you have a 25 to 30% chance of becoming disabled. And that's actually higher than dying. You have a chance of dying is just 14 to 17%. So you have a higher chance of becoming disabled by 65 than you do of actually dying. So and 50% of those disabilities are 90 days or longer. That's the reason why I'm stressing the 90 days. So you have to keep that into consideration. So that's what makes disability insurance so important, because you have to ask yourself this question. If I became disabled today, I'm unable to work, how would I suffer, and how would I suffer? Would I have the resources to carry me um, the entire time? If I was disabled for a year, would I be able to take care of myself, or would I have to depend? Would a lot of people have to like put their lives on hold or rearrange their lives just to help me? That's the way to look at it. Who's dependent on me? If you're in your 20s and you've already married, or if you already have kids, who else would be dependent on my income for while I'm in my 20s? Who would be dependent on my income? And so that's how you have to think about it, and that's why disability insurance is so important. Now, disability insurance was not created to cover in your entire income. It covers up to 60 to 70%, um, because a lot of people, humans being humans, they will abuse something. And so they're like, we're not trying to replace your lifestyle. We're just trying to get you over a hump, to help you, um, to keep from losing things. So for instance, if and mainly because 70%, this is usually after tax, also after tax. So if this is helping you take care of things in that period of time, that's all that disability insurance wants to do. It's not trying to replace your income. It's just trying to be a supplement and to, carry the burden of your income during that disability period. And so there's some other things you have to take into an account with disability insurance, things like taxes. For instance, if you decide that you're going to get disability insurance, which you should, if you don't have it with your work. A lot of times part of your group benefits is you have disability insurance, just to make sure that it's enough. Sometimes those insurances may only cover 40 to 50%. You want to get that up to 60 or 70%, so it may be time to get some. And if you do leave your job, then the disability insurance, all the other insurances, they do not go with you. You can't take them with you. And so that's why it's always good to have it top of mind in your 20s for that. And you also have to consider the tax ramifications. You want to buy disability insurance with after tax income, because if you buy it with pre-tax income, when you start to receive the benefit will be taxed. If you buy it with after tax income, when you receive the benefit, it will not be taxed, which is why you would only need 70% to buy 70%. That way the taxes are already taken care of. All of that good stuff is taken care of. So disability insurance, that's one of the safety nets of being in your financial safety nets of being in your 20s. The next one's insurance. Another insurance is life insurance. We all know this. Most people have heard of life insurance, know about life insurance. They've even heard of disability insurance. This stuff is not exciting. And going back to the circus analogy that I use, the safety net, no one's really paying attention to the safety net. It's not the thing, but it is extremely important in case of a fall. And it also gives a psychological safety net. Also, knowing that a safety net is below you allows you to focus on things that's also important. Focus on what's in front of you and what's going on in life, everything like that. Knowing that if something happens, you have that safety net, you're going to be okay. Life insurance is another. Remember the statistic I was talking about with disability insurance. Average 20-year-old has a 14 to 17% chance of dying before 65, and men is a little bit higher. They have a higher chance than females of passing before 65. And so that now you understand the importance of life insurance. And I always approach life insurance like this. You're in your 20s. What's some important things to you? Let's say you did pass away. Uh, would you want your parents or friends or family or GoFundMe to have to take care of something that you're responsible for, like your funeral arrangements, your burial, things like that? Would you want them to celebrate your life and to mourn and miss you? Or can you handle knowing that they're going to be stressed out because they're like, okay, we've got to bury them. They didn't have insurance, they didn't have this, and have that, and so we're going to have to take care of this. We're going to set up a GoFundMe page and, you know, beg, people for money to bury an adult, and depend on the kindness of strangers, which, the good thing, there are a lot of kind people out there, but I would not want to be approaching people to put me in the ground because I was irresponsible. And so that's why life insurance is so important. Or if you, let's go back to when you have a child, or you've already married and they depend on you. If you pass with no insurance, their life is out of whack now. So you have to think of it that way. Would you want them? And I know I've dealt with over 10 of those situations, like early, like premature deaths, like in their 20s and 30s. And it used to, at first it affected me big time, because especially when I was in my 20s and 30s, to actually see that, like, wow, so young, and to actually hear the spouse and kids, I don't know what we're going to do. They didn't have enough insurance, and so um, I I'm going to have to go to work, but I need childcare, and it was a lot of things thrown in their lap in a time of mourning, and it really affected me. And that's when I really began to take that area very seriously about life insurance. Like, okay, if I pass away, I want my family to keep going forward. I want my daughter to still go to school and not have to stress out about how it would be paid for, things like that. Day-to-day living, I don't want to leave anything unpaid that someone else would have to pay for my stuff. That's how I began to just look at just everyday common sense type way of looking at things. No big terms or whatever. Just, do I want my memory to be, we had to pay a bunch of his stuff off. He left a bunch of mess, and I've seen that more times than I would like to talk about. Or, you know, I hate that he's gone, but at least he left us in a good position. Everything's taken care of. And so that's what I would rather deal with, or know that I would be talked about than, that bum. It's a term. Is the word bum has come back with the younger generation. They're starting to use it more. I hear it a lot, and it's so funny. But that's what the older generation used to say. Um, so you have to take all of those things into consideration. Now, let's say you're single. A lot of people, especially in their 20s, they have pets. They have organizations that they love to support. They, like animal shelters. And I've talked about this before on my lives and on the show. And to know that, okay, if something happens to me, I can leave so much money to my favorite local you know, uh, whatever, charity or church or charitable organization, animal shelter, those types of things. If I have the life insurance and I leave, in my beneficiaries, or I can help take care of mom, maybe, mom really helped me, mom and dad helped me. I would want them to be the beneficiary to my life insurance, where after they take care of things, they would have some money that would, at least show them that I thought about them and that they would be able to do things, or help my, niece or nephew or my baby sister, leave some money for them to go to college, to use for college, or to get a good start in life. Those types of things to think about. 20-year-olds do a lot of important things. They just don't see it as that important, even though it's extremely important, and they would be missed. So that's why it's so important to think about that, even if you're single, life insurance. And so, cover life insurance. The next one, talked about it plenty of times. Most of the time, if I've talked about insurance, I've talked about budgeting, I've talked about the emergency fund. And why the emergency fund is so important in your 20s goes back to disability. Let's say you became disabled and you had disability insurance, Most disability insurance does not start paying for 90 days. So my question, what would you have to do in those 90 days? That 90-day period before the actual benefit starts kicking in. That's where emergency funds come into play. It's going to cover it. So you see, you need at least 3 months. Even if you have disability insurance, you need at least 3 months that would carry you before your benefits started. Now, what if the disability insurance is taking care of things, but it just so happened it may not be enough? Emergency fund. That's where the emergency fund comes into play. So you would want at least 3 months to cover the gap of being disabled, um, and waiting for benefits to kick in. And then you have to think, okay, I know I'm going to receive this much and for this amount of time, because not all disability insurance is the same. Today is just to get you to think about it and to actually talk to someone like us here that could, get you on the right path with like these types of things, getting these things set up. So your insurance may not be covering anything. So now you would have to depend on your um, um, the emergency funds to fill in that gap. So that's where we go into at least 3 months up to 12. And it depends after that. It depends on the industry you're in, depends on how injured you are or how disabled you are. Some things may come into play to where you may need it a little bit longer. That's where emergency funds come into play. 3 to 6 months of living expenses, 3 to 12 months. I like 12 months better, at least a year. That's the emergency fund. The fourth one is your will and power of attorney. I've talked about these. If you die, a will is the instructions, the written instructions on how you want your property and other valuables to be distributed. That's basically what it does. Not having a will makes things messy, because then at least a will, not having that means everything goes into probate, which means the courts are going to step in to take over who and decide who gets what, when they get it, how much, this, that, and the other. And I can let you know now, it's going to be a lot less than what you could have given had you had a will, because they are going to charge, they're going to pay someone to take care of this. And these people do not come cheap. That means things are going into probate. You do not want things to go into probate. Probate means time and money expensive. You're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of money. A will could take care of that. That's at its basic. And some 20-year-olds would say, what do I need a will for? Do you have a car? Yes. Especially if it's paid for. Do you have computers? Do you have jewelry? Do you have other expensive things? Well, yes. Okay, who's going to get it? Well, mom and dad. Are you sure? Because if you don't have a will, they may or may not get it. Who knows? We'd have to see. You have to wait till everything goes into probate. Nothing can be touched until it's gone into probate. But if you have a will and it's notarized and it's at the courts and it's given out to these people that's important in your life, multiple copies. So something happens, mom and dad has a will, and say, well, we know we are entitled to this. Here's the will. We're going to get it and we can take it. And that's what the will do. Power of attorney, I put it like this for the 20-year-old. Let's say, well, you have two types of power of attorney. You have the financial and you have the health. But both of them under this one question: if something happened to you and you were in a coma and could not make decisions, who would make the decisions for you, and what decisions would you want them to make? That's in a nutshell of what a power of attorney would do. Because if you don't have anyone power of attorney that has power of attorney, you're at the whim of whoever. I've sat in hospital and emergency rooms and I've heard questions come from someone that works for the hospital. Do you have a power of attorney, health directive? No. And the person is sick, so they don't really know what's going on anyway, and they're asking them these questions, and they're getting no's, and basically whatever the hospital decides to do is what's going to be done. Most of the time, doctors, the hospitals, they do the right thing, but we all know that that is not the case. I've seen healthcare, I've seen minimal healthcare, mediocre healthcare given because there was another agenda in place. I'm not going to go there, but I've seen it firsthand. And so that's what makes the power of attorney. The will's important for what you want to happen in case you pass away. The power of attorney is what you want to happen if you are still alive but can't make decisions. So these are the four that would make your life much easier in your 20s and beyond. You get these in place in your 20s, not I haven't even talked about the investment, because most people, they want to talk about investments. That's most of the time we talk about finance. How's my investments doing? But it's more to life is in investments. You don't have any of this in place. Something happens, the investments won't be able to do what they were created to do. Because if you became disabled, for instance, and you had to liquidate all of your investments, okay, now you're starting at ground zero, where if you had these things in place, the investments could still move forward and you would have things taken care of. So these are the four important ones. I know that would definitely make life much easier if you got them into play. But before I go, I wanted to say, I see here, oh, okay, Mr. Randy Hunt says, good morning. Oh, Mac, that's a friend, knows me personally. Great to see you, bro. Proud of you. Big shout out from, oh, yes, he lives in Atlanta, so I have Atlanta watching. Big shout out to Randy Hunt out there. Childhood friend. We're like family. We're like family, so he's a childhood friend. Thank you for watching, bro. He's what I call bro. I don't use the term bro just for everybody. He's a real bro. So thank you, Randy, for watching, tuning in. And thank you for shout out there. All right, so I'm going to close it there. If you have a question about this, if you're in your 20s and know someone in their 20s and it's time for them to get serious about their finances, give us a call. It might be you ready to have a look at your finances. We can sit down either in person or virtually like this. We can do it Zoom call, whatever, virtual, any type of virtual call. We can do it and get you on that right path to financial security. So that being said, I will tune in. I will see you next time. I will tune in. Don't forget to tune in. If you're watching by Facebook or YouTube Live also. I keep forgetting. I was wanting to say another one, but we're not on there. Facebook or YouTube Live. Don't forget to share it. Don't forget to like it. Send in those wallet wins. Share those questions, those comments. And until next time, we'll talk.